Again, good morning and welcome everyone. My name is Liz Romo and I'm the Training and Education Manager with AGC of California. We are thrilled to have you all here for today's webinar, IT for Contractors in the Modern Workplace. We've got some savvy tech gurus lined up today to share their knowledge with you all. We've got a Q&A at the end, so feel free to jot down any questions that arise during the webinar. Once again, welcome and thank you for choosing to spend your time with us today. With that, I'll pass it to you, Isabel.
Thank you, Liz. We're excited to be here today. My name is Isabel Thiessen. I am the marketing administrator here at RightClick. We're excited to present AGC IT for Contractors in the Modern Workplace. I will be the host for today's webinar. Before I turn things over to our speakers, I want to provide some background on RightClick. We've been in business since 1997. Providing enterprise-grade IT services and cybersecurity to organizations throughout California. 1/3 of RightClick's valued clients are in the architecture, engineering, and construction industries. We pride ourselves in providing customized solutions that deliver values and results to our clients, allowing them to focus on what really matters, their business. With that, I want to introduce our speakers. Our first speaker will be Roy McRae. Roy is our Business Development Manager. He's going to provide some context on the talk.
Thank you, Isabel. Today we'll be discussing IT for contractors in the modern workplace and the best practices in enterprise level IT. So I want to kind of start just by briefly reviewing 5 best practices to ensure your company's IT is enterprise level: IT infrastructure strategy, proactive IT services, precise documentation, backup and disaster recovery testing, and cybersecurity testing. So the company IT infrastructure strategy is as important as its mission statement. Modernizing IT infrastructure is imperative to maintain a competitive advantage and profitability. Proactive IT services focus on identifying and addressing potential challenges before they become significant problems. This will save time, money, and resources. Precise documentation encourages knowledge sharing and will significantly improve processes, ensure standardization, and will establish a high benchmark for quality control. It's also very important that you review your documentation quarterly and remove outdated and obsolete content. And without regularly scheduled backup and disaster recovery testing, there's no confidence in your disaster recovery preparedness. Cybersecurity testing obviously is a hot topic right now, and that's assessing and measuring network security vulnerabilities to determine effective strategies to prevent an attack. So a lot of the things that are really necessary are cybersecurity audits, risk assessments, penetration tests, vulnerability scans, and configuration scans. These are all vital for comprehensive cybersecurity. So now with that, we're going to kind of get into today's agenda. And then our co-CEO, Jim Harrington, will share his perspective on best practices and latest trends for the construction industry. So these are the talking points that will be covered today: a new cybersecurity strategy for construction industry, case study, cybersecurity checklist, and then lastly, a Q&A. Feel free to please type your questions in the sidebar chat throughout the webinar, and we'll circle back to them following the presentation. Now, let me introduce our co-founder, Jim Harrington. Jim is very passionate about providing AEC clients with enterprise-grade IT and cybersecurity. Our clients count on Jim's expertise to guide them and navigate through the ever-changing demands of IT and network security. Jim, I know this is going to be a great information session right now, so everyone buckle up and get ready for Jim to get it started.
Hey, great. Thanks a lot, Roy. Thanks everyone for joining, and Liz, I appreciate you inviting us. I'm going to start with a couple key terms. You know, our business, in the IT business, we love all this jargon, and we're going to keep this talk light on jargon, but there's a few things we'll address, and these are these main terms, so I want to hit these up right away. These are all security-based terms, and they're newer. It's the newer style security. This is what we're going to talk about, is some different ways to do security today. I'm going to run down these very quickly. First one, we'll talk about EDR, endpoint detection. when we talk about endpoints, that's really means your end device, usually your laptop, your mobile device, your tablet. This is replacing like the old antivirus. So an EDR is something that detects an issue, some type of virus or malware or something anomalous, something unusual happening on your device. That means someone might be hacking it. And it's more advanced in that it notices something that's maybe it doesn't actually see a real virus, but sees something out of the ordinary. And this EDR system, it comes with some type of service where someone actually responds. So it's not just a pop-up or an alert on the local device, but there's some response element in there. The next area that we're going to be talking about later is SASE. And you'll see these three S's, the SASE, the SIM, and the SOC. These are big, they all work together. And what a SASE is it's extending your security out to the edge. And when we talk about the edge, that means the end device, like the actual computing device that the user's on. In the past, we really used a perimeter security where maybe the computers themselves weren't that secure, or the way they operated weren't secure. Maybe there wasn't a very good password, or it's hard to tell if the person was really them or not. But we relied on some other firewalls or servers to protect us. Well, that model is getting turned upside down now. And what you really want to have is a secure edge, and assuming devices are everywhere now versus just the central security. That's where the SASE comes in. The SIM is a security database, basically. It's the security information event database. We all know, like any type of computer, it logs what's going on. There's some information of what's happening. Like you log into the computer, it keeps a note. This person logged in at this time. You install an update or a patch, that information's on there. The important thing about a SIM is what we want to do is we want to start correlating this information. So there's going to be a database that's separate from your device. It's going to be hosted in the cloud. It's in a separate area. That database will have information about these edge devices. It'll also have information about other things on your network, like what's going on with the network switches or the firewall or your server. And what the SIM allows us to do, correlation. So we can see there's not like an absolute signature of something going on, some type of intrusion, but something unusual is happening. We see lots of high traffic through an area, and at the same time, someone's signing into a computer they never signed in before. That information would go into a SIM and it would flag, it would pop up. And that leads to the next area, which is the SOC, the Security Operations Center. So what a SOC is it's essentially a group of staff that are monitoring your SIM database. So, and these technologies I've talked about, they all work together. So if we start back at the edge at the top, like the endpoint detection, we have some endpoint agents on computers. We've got the SASE on the devices too, which is like your firewall security. They're all sending their information to the SIM database. And you've got a remote staff that's monitoring this thing. Now, the remote staff, the SOC, this is what's really changed in the past few years. So clients that RightClick deals with, typically not like the Fortune 500 companies. These are mid-size, small and mid-size companies. And there's definite budgets involved. You can't have unlimited budget on security. Having something like a SOC in the past would be considered real luxury. These are high-level staff that are monitoring. It's expensive, and a lot of small and mid-size would forego this. Now, with modern technologies, what they've done is a lot of this service has been more automated, and the cost has come down significantly. So, like what our purpose really is to do today is to show you some of these technologies that are out here and available to more of like a mid-sized business. Last term is this GRC, government risk and compliance. This applies to you if you're contracting on a government project. There's more and more requirements to follow standards, okay? And cybersecurity is all based on standards. There's different compliance standards. They have things called CMMC or NIST or SOC, and they all have the same general requirements. Are you really identifying your users? Are you following the best practice to protect your information? And are you protecting or are you backing it up? So when you follow like proper security protocol, you're in place to comply with some of this GRC. And that can really help your business. If you have a compliance, you're a level up to be able to bid or work on certain government jobs. Okay, so the main thing we're talking about here today is a strategy. It's a new strategy. We all know cybersecurity is important. We want to talk about a new way to protect our information. Now, the new strategy, when I'm saying new, this didn't just come out a month ago. Some of these ideas have been around for, more than 5 years. But when these new security ideas come out, they're very expensive to implement. And what's happened over time now is the big vendors in our business, like the Microsofts, they've started to bring solutions that are low cost and simple to use. Now, if you get anything out of this talk today, I want you to really, find what's important, what's a high priority in security. A common security mistake is not just to underinvest or not do it, but it's to overinvest in an area that's not as important. I usually think of security as like building a pyramid, or in a construction business, it's your foundation. There's some things in cybersecurity that are foundational. Like one of them would be like what we call cyber hygiene. Hygiene is basics. You install the update patches on your device. You install the OS patches. You don't let a user log in as the whole administrator on the device. Just some basic hygiene things. If your company is lacking in cyber hygiene, where you're not doing that, but you purchase a SOC service for someone to monitor, that's a waste of resources. Security always builds from the foundation up. You have to have a complete security coverage and a foundational technology to move to the next level. And foundational technologies are things that we would call pure defense. So like patching, hygiene, things that block an attacker from getting in. The next level security has more to do with awareness. So we have defense, but now okay, our defense is solid. What we want to actually know if someone got in. If we have just basic patching and good defense, we might not know what's going on. Like, are we really secure? Did someone get in our system or not? You guys know when the most common thing when a system is breached, the attacker is not actually usually doing anything for a long time, for a few months. The way breaches work is there's usually one group that'll breach with like an email phishing or some type of an attack. They get in and they'll sell that credential to someone else. They'll take time to do recon inside the system. So having the next level where, okay, now you have someone that can look at the, examine your security tools and see that something happened, that's a next level technology. And then the next level on top of that, it would be more audit. Like have someone to really double check like what you think is happening is happening. Like, are your backups really working? Things like that. You need to build on that. But back to our security challenges. There's really been structural changes in the industry. This was accelerated with the COVID, with all the remote work. There's a big push to have more technology in the field. So like on construction jobs, having the tablets or the live documents out in the field. And that's a challenging environment because in construction, there's not always like, something's being built. There's not always good internet in the area. The threat landscape is much more difficult than it used to be. There's a lot to be gained from hackers nowadays, like the phishing. It usually leads to some type of financial crime. And it's typically like we're looking at attackers looking to impersonate someone else to get a payment sent. In our industry, there's a lot of wire transfer going on, paying for material, and it's super common to get tricked, to get phished. And that leads to like a reputation damage as well. Usually the tricks, they go across suppliers. Most common attack, someone doesn't have their email secured, they get their password phished. The attacker almost always will log into the email and read the context of the email. And then this might be like a vendor or a client of yours that this happens to. their email gets read, they'll send you something in context, which is like, here's the drawing we talked about, here's the purchase order we talked about. It looks very legit. It's from the person's email. You open it, but it's actually a link that's requesting your password. You put it in, you think it's part of the workflow, and then they phished you. So these are tricky things that we have to watch out for. The last difficult thing that we have to watch for is there's much more proliferation of devices now. Like our users, where they used to have less technology in the field, they have a lot more. They have their typically a mobile device. There's more compute in the field, more to protect. And we're going to see, like, when we really address these things, we're going to see a big, we call operational maturity, what you want to see in your business, or operational leverage. Strong cybersecurity leads to everything performing better, improved reputation, satisfied employees, smooth running projects. That's what we all want to see. Okay, we're going to look at this briefly. This is what we call our systems management quadrant. And this is to see if your IT resource in balance. An out of balanced organization when it comes to IT is typically focusing, excuse me, their spend and their resources in one of these areas and not enough in another area. The most common area to overfocus is in the support area. And if you have for instance, if you have ineffective planning, maybe either your company has purchased the wrong type of computer device for a team or a project, has a lot of problems, company's spending a lot in support, there's less budget to protect the system, there's more problems. So what you really want to do is you want to have a balance here. These all work together. And it reinforces. So we want to see, we have a solid plan. We're really thinking about, we're thinking in these areas when we're doing things. We have our plan. We do a strong deployment of the technology. Modern technology shouldn't require continuous break fix. Before, computing systems had a lot more problems. There's less problems nowadays. Deployment should be automated. There's no reason to have to do a lot of manual installing. And what we want to do is we want to, that support level, we want to minimize our support need. We want our support to be more proactive. Proactive support would be like creating a help desk system that employees or staff can click into and self-serve, add their own email account on their devices, have some training videos on how to use your system. And then we can take away that support area and really focus on the protect. The point of this is to have a more modern style workplace where our skills aren't really siloed. So your staff is really flexible, systems running well. Now, here's where we're going to talk about the shift to these modern security. This is what's called a framework. Zero trust is a framework. It's an idea. And if you start thinking zero trust, it really helps you choose your new technology, your security technology. We'll talk in a little bit about, this next year, I'm going to talk about an older security model, which is commonly referred to as perimeter security, where we had a strong location, but everything inside it was weak. The zero trust, the main thing here is we assume breach, we assume a problem, but then it should be okay. So I'll give an example. A common concern is mobile staff joining a Wi-Fi at say a coffee shop, and they're going to download some plans or their email, and that Wi-Fi might be fake or a trick, and someone intercepts their communications, cause a problem. There's one way to address that is to just say you can't use this, or we have to really, the user has to be really careful and know. But instead, we're going to assume like that is dangerous, that Wi-Fi is not safe. And the control to that is just all communications are encrypted. So if someone intercepts the communication, it's already scrambled or encrypted. And some of these technologies, like we'll go over, like this SASE, everything's encrypted. So if someone gets this, it's worthless. Same thing, we give people like a least privilege access. So when you have a project, someone only has access to the information that they need for the project. And if someone gets breached, well, your whole crown jewels, not everything is revealed, just the small area. Zero trust is about limiting like a movement through your organization horizontally. We call it like horizontal movement, where someone gets, that's what a hacker's trying to do. They try to get in and they start moving and get into more valuable systems. And we want to limit that. Now, here's where we can compare the old model versus the new. So perimeter security is probably what comes to mind when we think of cybersecurity for a business. Perimeter security, it's like how you would defend like something in the real world, like maybe a military base. You have strong edges, but then when you're inside, it's not as much security. At perimeter security in IT would have to do with, you'd have a central office. There'd be some expensive equipment at the office, some firewalls, make it difficult to get in remotely into the office. But then once you're on that trusted computer, not a lot of security in there. This thing is problematic. A couple of reasons it's problematic. Number one, it's expensive to maintain. It requires like higher end physical equipment, gear in an office. It's prone to failure because the business probably can't afford to have multiple versions of this gear. So you might have one central system that's managing it. It doesn't really support mobility very well. If you have a remote team, they're going to use VPN to get into this system. And again, that's a single point. It's a single point of failure. Where like the modern style does to support zero trust, and we assume everything's breachable, we really have to protect all our end devices, and we can't feel safe anywhere. So then we don't have this extra feeling of safety in the office versus remote. We assume it's all the same. And so what we do is we can drop some of these, we can save a lot of cost here. We can drop some of these enterprise style firewalls in the office, and we push that to the edge, to the computer. So a good way of doing this is we'll install a SASE agent, that's like a security software, on the end devices. And how the SASE works is it's kind of a replacement for a VPN. It encrypts all the communication in and out of the device, of the computer or the tablet. And so everything is scrambled. All the communication, it doesn't route directly to its destination. It goes through the cloud of the SASE provider. So what that's doing is it obscures where you're at, it hides. So if some attacker's like trying to see your location, they can't see it. If any of this data is intercepted, it's meaningless. The last thing the SASE does that's real important is it's able to inspect your encrypted traffic. And let me explain that. It's like slightly more technical, but it's a real important point. When we all deployed, 15 years ago, strong firewalls at offices, they would do extra security services. They'll look in and see if there's some type of unusual thing happening and try to block. And the way they do that is they can actually read into the traffic, read the traffic. Most of these, though, can't read our encrypted traffic. So years ago, when we go to a website, it was an HTTP website, which was unencrypted, plain text, which means from the computer to the website, it's interceptable by that office firewall. It can see what's going on. Well, modern times, if you notice, beyond just going to secure location like a bank or your email, almost every website now has HTTPS. It has security. When you have HTTPS, when you have that type of encryption, the security is between the end user's PC and the website, the server they're accessing. The firewall in the middle can't really see what's happening. So that perimeter firewall can't see what's inside there. You can see some basic things like it knows generally where on the internet you went to, but that's about it. Now in the SASE model, since the security's moved off the central firewall onto your computer, it can actually read into your HTTPS and provide a much more effective security. Budgeting for this is a little easier too. It grows with the company. So instead of buying some secure big firewall, you're paying some type of fee per device, similar to like your antivirus fee to support this. So SASE is a combination of device protection, a software agent on the device, using the cloud service. Now, once you're in the SASE, once you're in that cloud, that can be tied to your applications. So what you can do is if you have a cloud provider, you can restrict it to only be accessed through the SASE. So it really tightens up your security. And this is an example of like most businesses' migration path. So we're all moving from having old legacy servers in our office to more of a cloud system. Now, when we're moving to cloud, we lose some of that central IT control. And so we move to the cloud, we lose our perimeter security largely. And our security needs to push out to all those devices. So now and it's going to go hand in hand. It's like we're going to push security out to the devices, but then we're also going to restrict our cloud to only work through like our SASE system. So for instance, if your business uses SharePoint to store data, you have Procore, Dropbox, one of these clouds, you can go into that cloud and you can say, I want to turn on what's called conditional access. So beyond just having the security credentials, you literally have to be on your SASE, on your cloud VPN to get in. And then that shuts down a whole huge swath of the internet trying to attack your thing. So to wrap up this SASE, which is this huge part of Zero Trust, it's a combination of the agent on your device and the cloud service. The cloud provider, these providers that offer SASE, there's multiple of them. You want to use one of the providers that will have a big presence. And what that does for you is instead of like an old VPN where it remote into the server in your office, this is going to hundreds of servers throughout the internet. So it's very high performance. So I have here, it's like reducing friction because it's a good performance for your end users. One thing we've learned on cybersecurity, if we put in security controls that slow down the system, make it difficult for the end user, your end users will try to go around it. These are designed to run safely in the background and people shouldn't even really notice what's happening. Okay, you notice we talked a lot about the SASE because that is one of the newer technologies that not everyone is up to speed or aware on. These here, it's like if you really want to have a cyber secure business, and you know what I talked earlier when I said your security is really, it's a stack that you need to build on. These are the keys. I'll say right now so we talked about replacing like a VPN with a SASE. Next is your MFA. MFA, I think we're all more familiar with. That's your multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is fundamental. This is the top way that your systems are breached when you don't have multi-factor. If you're using a modern system, if your email is hosted by Google or Microsoft, it's almost never breached in the fact that the system has a bug and it's breached. It's breached because an end user gave out their password accidentally. And there's so many tricks for this. It happens constantly, so the end users presented a page that looks like they're signing into their email and they're not. So this, the MFA, the multi-factor authentication, it's a pure zero trust. It's assuming instead of doing just relying on training where we have to tell the users not to do this, we're just going to assume a certain number of users are going to give out their password on accident. When they give it out, that password's worthless because it's going to prompt a multi-factor authentication, a code on the user's mobile device that the attacker doesn't have. If you do this base level, so I talked like let's build our security building. we're going to start out with cyber hygiene. And cyber hygiene is the patching and the security, and you have to have some way to patch. So instead of just telling the users click on the update, you're going to have an agent on there that's going to tell you centrally this thing's updated. We're going to do those basics, like we're going to limit administrative access. The next level in our building is we're going to make sure that MFA is enforced. Anything that can be accessed remotely. So on our Microsoft cloud, on anything in the cloud, on our Dropbox, those are all multi-factor authentications. That's top. If you stop there, you've increased your safety significantly. Next step is you'll add some type of SASE agent. That's going to protect your network communication. So the patching is protecting your device. The multi-factor authentication is protecting your user. The SASE is protecting all the communications. We want to have some type of strong device management where this can be simple. I told you these things are simple to do now. You have a basic agent on there and your IT can centrally see everything. And so the software is running this for you. You're not having to do as much actively every day. So what your IT is doing is they're dealing with exceptions or problems that come up, but not having to manually patch and make sure everything's up to date. We want to have fast access to data anywhere. Now, one thing that we've seen, which is newer, which is great, is on a job site, we want to have higher speed internet. And there's been, sometimes that's difficult when there's not a cable, it's a new job site, there's construction, and there's not a way to get a physical cable there. In this region, like it's usually possible to get a wireless MSP, someone that'll beam the signal from another building. Something that's become available more recently is Starlink internet. Starlink is the newer satellite internet. It's relatively inexpensive and it's high speed. And the great thing about Starlink is if you're doing a contracting job on some development that's a 1 or 2 year job, you can pull the Starlink in, you can activate it. You have to buy this dish to do it. After that, like it's on a month-to-month, you turn on and off at will. And it's really simple to install this dish on a trailer. You have to run all your security cameras, all your devices in the field. So the key is just making sure we have a strong internet somewhere. And then we don't put any other infrastructure out there. These are agents run on computers. We have 2 last points here for your cybersecurity business. So you want to promote a culture of cybersecurity. This really means regular talking about cybersecurity training and not making it something special. You have a business meeting, you're talking about something, include cybersecurity training. All our construction businesses are very focused on safety training. It's something you have to do. You do job safety training, talk about boss fraud, like cybersecurity phishing. Boss fraud is super common in this industry. And boss fraud is the phishing attempt where you pretend you're the boss and you ask someone to go buy gift cards, you ask them to go do something tricky. And the reason we see boss fraud more in construction than other industries is because it's hard to hack your boss's email and actually send a fake email. So what they're doing is they're sending it from a Gmail or they're texting an employee pretending they're the boss. Well, we know, like, since our workers are in the field, a lot of their communications is just through a text message. So they get tricked by this a lot. A good way to get around this is to have some basic standards. So if we deploy some company communication, like say like Microsoft Teams chat, and where they have very inexpensive licenses now for the field, and we tell our field staff, this is the way the company's communicating, only through Teams. We're not texting each other. We're only going through this channel. That's going to lessen those type of events happening. But having this culture, the cybersecurity culture, is very important. One last thing I'll say on that is on cybersecurity training, there's a lot of training programs where you send out the phishing emails, you see if people click on them. Some of those seem punitive, where you don't want to have a system where an employee is like embarrassed or uncomfortable to tell you if they clicked on something. So this culture is really, you want if someone makes a mistake to be able to report and tell you without a problem. Finally, this highest level of your security. So remember, we're building our security structure. We start out with hygiene. Okay. Then we're going to add a multi-factor security. Then we're going to add network communication, which is SASE. Okay. Then we're going to do some type of, we're going to have our culture, our users trained. We're going to do a security operations center where people are monitoring. And the last thing is the test and audit. You want someone on the outside to check what's going on. Or you want your management staff, they don't have to be IT person, just ask enough questions. Hey, let's do a test restore. Let's see that this backup worked. You want to occasionally plan some disaster scenario, but it doesn't have to be like everything crashed. It could be something small. This is an ongoing thing you want to do. This is just an example of the higher level, like a test and audit. It's recommend everyone has like specific cyber insurance. The cyber insurance companies will do this audit for you. So they'll run a system, they'll give you security scores. Security score is a great way for management to see where you stand. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to a case study. We'll hit this up quickly. This company, Upright Construction, it's a fast-growing general contractor. And so the needs here are to move fast without problems, to keep things secure, keep the staff happy, and learning new skills. As a growing company, they want to limit turnover. They want to like have a good job satisfaction. Some solutions here that were put in place, cloud solutions. Everything is stored in the cloud. When files are shared, they're shared via like a link versus the physical file. So when we go back to how we talked about zero security, if you're working with something about construction industries, we're always working with outside. It's a team job. We're working with outside companies. So you're going to have an engineer, an architect, a GC, the customer, the client, all working together, sharing files. Old way of doing that, maybe just email an attachment. Like, here's the drawings, they're attached. That is terrible for zero trust, because we're going to assume breach. So we're going to assume like, here's some drawings about the project. I sent them to the client. I'm going to assume the client had poor security and their email is eventually going to get read by someone. So instead of sending them the attachment, we're going to send them a link to the file. They're going to click the link and receive the file, but then that link will eventually expire. So if their email is hacked in 6 months, it's worth nothing. So that's technology is used here. So it enables like rapid, easy communication without a lot of security trouble. At this company, they have a strong security stack. So a lot of those initial key terms I talked about initially, where we have like the instead of a regular antivirus, like the enhanced detection, they have strong device management. So this stack is on there. They have SOC monitoring. So since this company did a good standardization, there's not a lot of general technical problems. So some of the IT budget can go more towards that protect side to have some monitoring. So if there is a problem, it gets addressed right away. Device management, when we talk device management, it's really like the compute devices, the tablets, mobile phones, laptops, the strong management. They're not open build to do anything. This company is really able to scale and grow, powers the business model. The technology is powering the business model versus being a challenge or slowing down the business. I'm going to wrap up here with a checklist. Here's what we talked about. We want to think about your company. How are the technical resources balanced? Is there a lot just working on support or fixing problems? How much is going into planning? Our goal here is really to have a strong plan, limit how much we have to spend in the support area. So we can focus on protecting the system to limit big problems and then continuously improve. This is a continuous thing. To do this, you want to have strong device management. Budget more towards that. Some some software agents on devices with a company that's going to monitor and manage them. You can move more towards zero trust. That's going to free up some of your budget. So we're not investing in a lot of gear in the office. It's more on cloud services. Retiring these physical servers, that'll increase reliability. We're going to lean more on these big cloud providers. Promote your cybersecurity culture. This SOC service is like this budget free up can allow you to do this type of SOC. We talked about the SASE, that's going to protect your network communications. MFA is extremely important. Ensure that you have MFA everywhere. Here's our real challenge on security. You do all these things, you get a little loose on one end device, one user doesn't have MFA, there's your breach. So you want to have some systems in place that it's automatic, that all end devices are company owned, people don't use their personal devices, and they're under control. So you can make sure this happens without a lot of trouble. It's just an automatic thing. The way we do it is we do what we depot all the rollouts for everybody. So we'll have devices centrally. We do initial programming. It's going to automatically push it out. We'll provide the user the device. Everything's already decided. It's already ready to go. Someone needs an exception. They might put in a support ticket to get some of their software application they need. And then just assume some trouble, test and audit and watch this. Follow this and you're going to really have operational maturity. You're going to have that business plan moving forward. Really successful company.
Thanks, Jim. I really appreciate, the detail that you went through today. I think it was great seeing how important this is for the construction industry. We talk a lot internally with our internal team about how to make things better, how to kind of overdo it for our clients. And we really kind of see that, this new strategy of cybersecurity being integrated and being, part of a company's business plans is really important because it enables the end user to kind of know that they're protected, but also not have to, have their system slow down and get frustrated. And as Jim said, the main goal is to improve productivity and keep everything safe. So it's important to kind of have all these things working together so that we're concentrating less on break fix and more on, just making things run smoothly. So, these steps and processes are really important for companies to kind of understand that, going forward, you want to try to, budget and plan accordingly so that you can have these types of protections in place. So with that, it looks like we got a couple questions. I'll start with those. And let's see here. So one of the questions was, how can AEC organizations recover from data breaches? I know that there's a lot of ways, different types of data breaches, but as Jim touched on, the main thing is to, limit these in the very beginning by having regular testing and things like that. But when they do happen, I can let Jim kind of understand through this testing and understanding that, you kind of want to anticipate these at a small level and be doing testing to know, how to do that disaster recovery. That's the important part of it, to kind of know ahead of time, like, hey, this is what we're going to do when this happens. But I'll let Jim address that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's right, Roy. I mean, well, first off, is the whole intention here is to prevent breach. And then that is a high bar, especially as the organizations grow and you have more devices in the field. So then, like, when you think of our strategy or zero trust, we're like, well, we're going to assume breach. So it's not even like we can prevent everything. We're going to try our damnedest to prevent the breach, but some things are going to get breached. So then what we're going to do is we're going to limit the damage so it can't get too far. And we want to have a system in place that when we detect a breach, there's some type of plan, which means we're going to contact someone responsible and move the plan. A breach is going to be costly. The protection for this is like some type of cyber insurance, and also just limiting how far it goes. So let's focus our spending on mostly preventing this, but then limiting the spread.
Right. And one of our other questions was about that, how much does it cost when you have a data breach? Obviously, that's dependent on the type of company and kind of what information is breached and compromised. But really, the main thing is to understand that, things are going to happen. But if you have a culture in your company about cybersecurity, you're going to limit these. And if you have a really strong place, a strong cybersecurity plan in place, then as Jim said, you're not really able to move horizontally through the company and get to the crown jewels. So it's more about limiting that access so that clients feel protected. Another question here is, are there any cons of using cloud file sharing for AEC? Obviously, there's a large files, so a lot of clients are kind of worried that maybe these files, they're not going to be accessible very quickly, or it's going to slow down because they're using cloud services. And then Jim, maybe you can touch a little bit on, because I know that, when I talk to new clients and different prospects, sometimes they're a little concerned about not having things on-prem. Like they're just really convinced that that's the most secure way to do things. And obviously, as we kind of know now with your talk today about zero trust, that it's, using these large cloud providers like Azure with Microsoft is kind of not only less expensive because you're getting rid of this, big servers and things like that need to be replaced every 5 or 6 years, but also just talk a little bit about how much better it is as far as access and controls, and then also just the cost as well.
Well, yeah, all the big companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they focus all their development on the cloud storage. So there's some technologies available there that aren't available to us on-prem. One specific example is in Amazon's cloud. They brought this out, and some of their clouds have copied this feature. They have what's called immutable objects. And immutable protects against ransomware. So when your company gets ransomed, the idea is an attacker gets in, they really understand the system, they unleash some type of crypto virus, scrambles all your files. Then what they're really after is scrambling all the backups, like all of it, so you have no recourse. You can't restore, and you have to pay them some type of Bitcoin to get your information back, you're held ransom. Now, your whole backup system is designed to protect against this. It's separate, it should be isolated. It's hard to protect against getting any type of ransom or crypto on your system, but if it happens, you should be able to restore. If someone got deep, let's assume someone did that. What an immutable setting does, like in the cloud, is it says, even if it's you, if you're the system admin and you click on your backups or your files and you delete them, the system will say, the Amazon system will say, well, okay, we'll delete it, but you've marked these files as immutable for 90 days. So you can't, they're going to stick around for 90 days. So that assumes the attacker got your admin credentials, they still can't remove it. So that's something that's a little better about the cloud, but there are downsides to this too. There's cons. The speed is the top issue. When we're moving general administrative offices to the cloud, they're talking about, Microsoft Office files, PDFs, they're small files. We're talking construction, we're talking large drawings. And what's an issue with the drawings is the X references. Is if you're ever working on a large project, you'll have your different disciplines. So it's like your electrical drawings are X reference to the structural drawings. So you might need a very high bandwidth to see all these files at the same time. And that's where you have some of the more standardization, like with AutoCAD with the M360, or some things can address that. But there's still a place here. Like sometimes you have to balance, you don't have this technology, you have to have something on-prem. The other reason for having things on-prem is you have a legacy system, you have some type of thing that's not offered in the cloud, and it's your main database that you're working with. What you have to just recognize those when you're stuck with some on-prem solution, you're stuck with a little bit more cost. You either pay IT people to manage and defend this thing, or you limit that spend, but you increase your risk. So the more you can get off of that onto some of these big cloud providers, it's going to cost less, and you're going to take advantage of more technology.
Thanks, Jim. So it looks like we're close to wrapping up. Appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you very much to Liz and AGC for inviting us today. We're really excited to be what we hope is the first of many presentations for you guys. And I'll let Isabel kind of wrap things up. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Again, thank you everyone for joining. We hope you gain some new insight and leave today with some action items. Please be sure to check us out online at rclick.com, or be sure to reach out to Roy at rclick.com to schedule a complimentary cybersecurity audit. With that, I'd like to send everyone on their way and have a good rest of your Thursday.